Ladies and gentlemen, the first 4 levels of dopamine addiction out of 8 in 13 minutes. Now, I'm Leon, I'm the founder of Limitless, and I collected over $3.7 million for my clients in the last 18 months. Part of it was because I understood this and I was able to navigate and escape the trap of the dopamine addiction cycles that had kept me stuck in the past. And I will explain to you exactly what the mechanics are behind dopamine and how you can leverage it so it doesn't just become an enemy you have to fight, but rather a tool you can harness to create the reality that you want to live in. When you realize the teachings in this video, you will be way more effective at understanding and managing your own dopamine cycles and turning it into the weapon that you've been given by the universe. What most gurus are doing on YouTube is actually harmful. They're inducing the idea that dopamine is the enemy. But when you see something that is naturally present in you as a human, as an enemy, it's basically like an autoimmune disease, right? It's like you're gonna start to attack yourself. You are gonna feel shame, you're gonna feel guilt, and you're gonna feel failure because you can't escape it, right? You cannot escape dopamine itself. It's like trying to escape breathing, right? It doesn't make sense. And so what you will be trapped in is first dimension escapism, because these gurus, they unconsciously teach you in a way that makes dopamine the enemy. So it actually reinforces the cycle of escaping and not tackling the root problem. When you learn more about this and you understand the higher dimensions of dealing with dopamine and how to control the cycles and how to actually leverage it, dopamine becomes your most powerful weapon. It literally becomes the #1 thing for you to rely on to shape your reality, to manifest your life in the ways you want to, right? There's a reason that I'm able to be in the place I'm at in the world with the time, location, and financial freedom I have and just make videos and literally not have to work, right? There's a reason I have that. I've generated over $3.7 million for my clients in the last 18 months. I help multiple people go from a 9 to 5 to traveling the world and being remote and having location and financial freedom, and who are now literally traveling Thailand, Bali. You can watch on my channel, I have a video where we hosted a mastermind in Thailand where you see some of our clients who flew out to us in Thailand and spent 10 days in a villa with us. These people would not be there if they didn't see the value in what we give them, right? And all these people, word for word, told us that we literally changed their lives. And that's exactly what happens when you understand frameworks like these on a higher level. Because like I said, there's 8 different levels, right? Most people know 1. Most people just know dopamine, bad. Dopamine, broken. Scrolling, porn. I hate it. I don't want it. I need to kill my addiction. I need to destroy myself. That's literally how most people look at it, right? But if you understand this, you understand there's so many more layers and you can level up in so many ways that you haven't seen before. And that's extremely beautiful because that gives you control, that gives you power, that gives you freedom. The amount of people I've helped overcome limiting beliefs and how many limiting beliefs I've helped people overcome is insane, right? It's in the hundreds, if not thousands. The different mechanics on how to deal with it, right? This whole mechanic, how to neutralize the pain avoidance, escapism cycle, how to neutralize validation seeking, approval seeking, permission seeking, how to neutralize the status games. I've had people help me with that. I've had amazing people teach me exactly how to neutralize limiting beliefs. The biggest influence being a psychotherapist who literally has been in the field for 40 years. She worked with like the worst prison inmates. She worked with the most addicted people, right? She worked literally with the most extreme cases basically of society in terms of addiction, in terms of like being outside of societal norms, like people who are like in extreme prisons and stuff. And she literally taught me one-on-one. She literally taught me one-on-one how to neutralize limiting beliefs, how to basically spot energy in people, how to basically take the restraints that they've put on themselves, how to relieve guilt, how to relieve shame, how to relieve past trauma, childhood trauma. She taught me all of this one-to-one, and it's been extremely effective. And I took more stuff of what I learned from multiple people, and I was able to create an amazing framework, and I was able to see reality clearly and see the different levels. Let's start at the lowest level, or what I'd like to call the first dimension, which is the transactional reality. This is where most people reside. TikTok, porn, smoking, scrolling, gaming, all of those are first dimension dopamine addictions. The simple process behind dopamine from a first level of consciousness is I feel bad, I need a fix, I take a hit. It's reactive. And what the person is looking for is regulation in numbing. What does that mean? Most people think that dopamine is about the reward. When I do the thing, I get something and that will make me feel happy. That's the assumption. But dopamine is not about the kill. It's about the chase. It's about the feeling that you're gonna get something. That is what reinforces the cycle. The sad thing about the first dimension is that it's not even about really finding pleasure. Rather, it's about escaping pain. Now, the dopamine mechanism at all levels consists of three simple components. First off is the stimulus. What actually activates the dopamine chase? Second is the filter. What are you looking for to satisfy the desire? And then third is what do you feel after you've done that thing? So what creates the desire? What am I looking for to fulfill the desire? And when I get my desire fulfilled, what does that make me feel like? In the first dimension, the stimulus is pain avoidance, craving, isolation, or discomfort. Notice how all of these are rooted in feeling bad, right? Like I said, it's not even about feeling good, it's about not feeling like shit. And so your filter is all about finding something that provides immediate relief, that is the lowest effort, that gives you a familiar reward and a cheap high. Once you have your fix that checks all the boxes, you'll take it and you'll end up feeling escaped, consumed, reached for, or reacted. Somehow, no matter how much you chase, no matter how often you get the fix, you never actually feel satisfied. And sadder than that, with most things, you need more and you need more extreme to ultimately satisfy the same feeling that you had the last time. What happens with drugs, for example, is the first time somebody takes it, they need a little bit, right? They just need a little hit and they'll feel the high. But then after weeks or months, they start to need more and more and more to create that same feeling. But the same feeling of the first time never really comes back. So they keep chasing and chasing and chasing forever to what actually will never really end. The same thing goes for gaming, alcohol, parties, and even something like sex, for example. People become addicted not to the reward because the reward never really gave them the feeling they're looking for. They become addicted to the chase because the chase creates dopamine and it creates cortisol, the hunt, the feeling of I'm getting the thing. And that is what distracts people in the first dimension from their pains, their cravings, and the fact that they feel lonely and uncomfortable. How do most people try to solve this? Challenges, dopamine detoxes. They try to fight it. And this is the biggest mistake because the wrong assumption people make in the first dimension is that their addiction, the habit that they cultivated, is the problem. But it's not. Somebody who's doom scrolling TikTok thinks, I have a problem with TikTok. You don't have a problem with TikTok. You have problems in your life and those problems make you feel bad. And to escape that feeling, you scroll TikTok. Because the moment you kill the root problem, you kill the habit as well. If your life is messed up and you feel like shit, that will make you chase. But if you fix your life and you no longer feel like shit, well, there's no stimulus for this whole process to start. And so instantly the habit will be gone. The problem can lie in a lot of things. It can be shame. It can be guilt about something that happened in your life. It can be a simple belief. And that is extremely important to find out. For that, most of the times it's easier to work with somebody who understands these mechanisms. I've worked with so many people that have helped them fix their dopamine chasing problems because I understand how to find that root problem and how to pull it out in a way that they feel like, oh my God, this was the easiest way ever. Right? It will be effortless because fighting the dopamine, trying to control it, trying to do the detox, trying to put it in a box, it never works because your mind is way stronger. Your mind and the chemicals in your mind are just waiting for the moment you're weak. So what happens is crazy, right? The moment you start the challenge, you get a hit of dopamine because you're now chasing a new reward, being rid of your addiction, which will seem like more pleasure. But the crazy thing is that once your brain then takes that dopamine away, the initial motivation, you suddenly feel like shit again. And what happens then is that your brain already has all the neural pathways. It already has that association of let's fix it with the cheap fix. And so what happens? You take the cheap fix and you'll get trapped. And then you'll feel even more like shit. You'll feel more guilty because now you took the challenge, you failed. So now you feel even more disappointed. And what is that? more pain. What happens? More pain. Start looking for the dopamine. Feel like shit. Not really feel rewarded. Disappointment. And so you can stay in this cycle forever unless you find the root problem. So the first dimension, mind, craves relief. Now, what about the second dimension? The second dimension, mind, craves inclusion. Now, I want you to understand all these dimensions have overlap. It's not like you are here and not here. It's like you can be mostly here, somewhat here, and sometimes here. Or you can be mostly here, somewhat here, and sometimes here, right? I am not here, but that doesn't mean I never scroll TikTok. It doesn't mean I never eat candy or I never play a game. I play a game at times, but it's not habit. It's not an addiction. It's not something I feel bad about. It's something fun in my life, sometimes with my friend. That's it. It doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't say anything about me. If somebody today was like, I'm taking that game away from you, I'd be like, okay. There would be no thought. There would nothing would happen. If like 12, 13 years ago, you would have said, I'm going to take League of Legends away from you, I would have freaked out, right? I would have thrown a tantrum. If you'd say like, I'm going to take the game away from you, I'm like, yeah, sure. Sounds good. It wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't be a pleasure. It would just be nothing. So what about the second dimension? The second dimension looks for safety in sameness. And their mindset is based around the idea, if it validates me, I want it. If it threatens me, I hate it. Now, the second dimension is the polarized reality. This is where we get good and bad, negative, positive, cool, not cool. The moment you start going to high school, you will primarily enter the second dimension because it's identity based. And high school is all about who is cool, who is not cool. You're either in the group or you're out the group. You're part of us or you're not part of this. Now, what will your dopamine cycle start to revolve around? The stimulus will revolve around social comparison, ego insecurity, validation, and fear of missing out. These will be the main drivers of you to seek dopamine. And so what you're looking for is something that will give you a status hit, something that will make you feel like you belong. So for example, somebody approving of you, somebody saying, oh, I really like that outfit, or I really like your shoes, or oh, you're so cool, right? You're looking for an emotional spike, somebody to give you that high or even low, and you're looking at a you versus them dynamic. So you're comparing yourself to others. How cool am I in relation to that guy? How cool am I in relation to her or him? And where am I in the hierarchy? Whatever fix you find, you will develop an identity addiction, right? So you will start to revolve around what kind of clothing you like, what kind of artists you like, what kind of sports you like, what kind of clothing you like. You will start to form an identity around things you like and dislike. And most of the time you will either feel triggered or inflated, right? So if something pisses you off, if somebody says, oh, I am a fan of this sports team and you hate that sports team, you'll feel triggered. If somebody challenges your view on politics or on something else, you will feel triggered. The moment somebody attacks your personality, what you like, what you dislike, and they take the opposite stance, you'll get triggered. Whenever somebody sides with you, whenever somebody basically compliments you for who you are, what you do, what you like, what you don't like, you'll feel better about yourself. You'll feel inflated. So what can we see in the second dimension? It's the idea of chasing likes, right? Chasing likes, chasing views, a lot of gossip. So people constantly talk about, oh, did you hear? He did this, she did this, he said that. It's a lot about other people, constantly comparing, constantly trying to virtue signal, constantly trying to see what makes me belong to the group and what doesn't, and how do I stay in the group. It's just about belonging in general. So it doesn't matter if it's the coolest group. It's just about what group do you like to belong to. So for example, in entrepreneurship, you have the info space, you have the e-commerce guys, you have the, what is it, like the traders, right? Everybody belongs to some kind of group. Where do people get trapped in the second dimension? They think that attention actually signifies their self-worth, even though it really does not, right? The fact whether people like you or not really doesn't say anything about you as a person. It just says something about their own opinions and their own ideas about the world. And if you stay here, you will find yourself very trapped, constantly living to what others want to see. So the funny thing is, your personality is not even personal. It's a complete construct based on what other people like you to be. So it's a response. It's not coming from inside out. Your identity is created from outside in. Oh, they like that, so I'll be like that. Oh, he wants this, so I'll be like that. He wants this, so I'll do more of that. A lot of content creators get super stuck here. And this is where you see a lot of influencers and content creators. So you might think like the people with 500K followers or a couple million followers, that they're super great and super amazing and super smart. I've talked to a lot of them. Most of them, first of all, they don't really make any money. I know people with 3 million followers who make like 10K per month, right? Which is absolutely terrible. I know people that with literally 700 subscribers, right, make 50K a month. And I know people with like, 5K subscribers who do 100K per month. That doesn't even say anything, obviously. But the point is that most people would think people with like high amount of status in the second dimension, they're very cool. They have it figured out. But most of these people are completely trapped. And the reason for that is that they cannot speak what they want to say. They constantly have to adjust their content and their message to the audience. And so they're not even actually the master. They're the slave to the audience. They constantly are serving the audience, because the worst thing for them would be to not be included. I get likes for this behavior, and so I'll do more of that. I'm not getting likes for this behavior, so I'll do less of that. Even if I like behaving like that, even if I don't behaving like the way that people will like me for. So what is the root problem that we got to figure out? It's understanding that ultimately you're never going to be fulfilled constantly acting and wearing a costume. You're going to feel like shit. You're going to feel like I am not myself, and you're going to struggle. And what does that do? Boom, it traps you in the first dimension. Because the moment you feel bad about people not validating you, your first instinct is to start creating and doing and adjusting your behavior to fit in. But the moment you don't have the energy to do that, where do you go? You go to your first level. So you're going to look for the fix. And this is why you see people that are very famous, right? Artists, celebrities, who have this meteoric rise, suddenly get addicted to the craziest drugs and then completely down spiral their whole career. Because first they had the energy, right? They're thriving on the high. Oh, I'm fitting in. I'm being the cool person, right? I'm now the popular kid. Boom, boom, addiction, dopamine, chase, more fame, more views, more likes. It gets to the point that they have done so much adjusting. They've gotten so validated for being somebody who they're not. And that's what you'll see happen. They'll say that in interviews as well, right? They'll say that I don't feel like myself. I don't actually feel like this guy. Think of Justin Bieber, right? He's been in the spotlight since he was like 10 or 11. He was constantly getting validated for a decade or more for what they liked from him. Nobody was sitting there with Justin Bieber's like, Justin, tell me about yourself. Who are you actually behind the artist, behind the singing? And he couldn't, because the moment he does that in public, people will see that and be like, oh, what the fuck is this? And so what happens, people start doing crazy stuff. That's why Justin Bieber started peeing, in I don't know what he did, but he started peeing in the wild or something. He started peeing in the streets because his personality and his soul is so far detached. It's like he's constantly having to wear a mask, and it gets to a point that people actually become kind of crazy. And that's when they become rebellious. They start doing crazy shit so they can try to find their way back to who am I actually? I'm constantly fitting in. So their first idea is, what if I don't fit in? Fuck it. I'll be someone different, right? Look at this. Everybody knows this. Party in the USA. Every guy knows this at least. Look how she looked, right? This was her image. This is the image people liked. Where did it came from? Hannah Montana. That was what people thought Miley Cyrus was. Inside, right? She didn't feel like that. Inside, she was not that person. And so what happens? She started rebelling against, her image. She starts taking a different position. And suddenly people are outraged. What are you doing? You're crazy. How are you doing this? Cancel her. Because people get afraid. Because they like the version of Miley that they built by validating her. They didn't like the version of Miley that they didn't build. Nobody actually liked the real Miley Cyrus, not because they don't like her, just because they don't even know who the real Miley Cyrus is. Now that is on a macro scale, that's celebrities, but this happens every day to people just like you and me, right? People who are in a job because their parents told them, hey, be a doctor, and now they're a doctor, and they really didn't want to be a doctor. They really wanted to be like some designer or graphic designer, but because their parents, but because of school, but because of society, they ultimately just became whatever they were told to become. They went into the thing that they knew people are going to like me for this. If I don't become a doctor, my parents will disapprove of me. If I don't study math, my parents will disapprove of me. They will abandon me. And so the best thing for me to get my dopamine is to just become a doctor, even though I really don't want to be a doctor, right? So people just like you and me are trapped here. Cool thing is you will find out, right? Again, you get to the root problem of people pleasing. You get to the root problem of understanding that your self-worth or who you are is not defined by what others think of you. And that's how you move into the third dimension. The second D mind craves inclusion. The third D mind craves elevation. And this is where we enter the world of the YouTube gurus, self-help, self-development, right? Success proves I'm real. Discipline is dopamine in disguise. And this person finds power in separation. Remember, 2D, safety and sameness. 1D, regulation and numbing. 3D, power and separation. What does this person want? They want to be seen as the guy, the girl, the queen, the boss. The third dimension is operating on status, right? And so what is the stimulus source? Milestone chasing, productivity highs, recognition seeking, and systems and metrics. It's the Stripe screenshots, it's the Lambos, it's the Rolexes, right? This is the world of status. This is where we enter progression. And this is the person who's addicted to progress. They want more, better, faster, more optimized, etc. And this is where I have been for a long time, right? Chasing. Now, I want to note here as well, dopamine is not bad, right? Like I said, dopamine is not a demon. It's a tool if you understand it correctly. And so in the third dimension, you start to see dopamine as a currency. This is where you actually start to leverage it instead of just being at the mercy of it. So what is the filter? You're looking for things, you're looking for fixes that are goal-oriented, you're looking for structured wins, expert framing, and status maintenance. You get addicted to the progress, you're looking for certainty, you want to feel achieved, so you want to have achievements, and you want to prove control. And that is the tricky thing about this paradigm, the proof and the need for control. Because you'll feel that if I can control the outcomes, if I can do all the metrics right, if I can control the inputs, I can control the output. And it puts you somewhere close to what you could say a god. That's what people feel like in the third dimension. If I control all the inputs, if I do all the things like I should do them, then I should get the outcome. And they're not wrong, right? This is not wrong. Like I said, it's not bad. It's just, it can be another trap. So here it's no longer about fitting in. It's actually about elevation. I want to be better than others. In the second dimension is I want to be with others. I want to belong. I want to be safe. In the third dimension is I want to be better than others, because if I'm better than others, I'll automatically be safe because I'll be the one leading. I'll be the one in control. What is the tricky thing about the third dimension is you're obsessed with becoming. And the crazy thing is you never really become anything. Another trap is that you're going to put things behind something. You're going to create cages that don't exist. What does that look like? Very simple. Once I achieve X, then I get to do Y. Once I become this person, then I can do this thing. And from a manifestation standpoint, that's a trap, because the law of assumption says you want to already assume that you are what you need to be, or you have what you want to have. Because by us trying to become, what we are constantly reinforcing is that we're not. Right? If I'm trying to become confident, what I'm actually saying is I am not confident in the first place, because a confident person wouldn't need to become confident. So what will people do in the third dimension is do a lot of challenges. Nowadays, for men, this is very centered around making money, looks maxing, right? Looks maxing, making money. And part of looks maxing is fitness. So this is where people really feel like I need to do X, I need to achieve Y, and then I can get the girl of my dreams, or then I can get the car, or then I can be free. The good thing about this paradigm is that you are actually creating outputs, right? So you're actually creating real life outcomes. Especially in the first dimension, you're not creating anything, you're just consuming. In the second dimension, you might create, but still a lot of it is centered around just fitting in. And if you fit in, right, you're never going to be really special, so to say. And so you'll never really get to a point where you actually have something that would mean anything in the real world in terms of tangibles, like money or cars or women or whatever you want to talk about in terms of status symbols, right? And that's also why we call it status symbols, because it basically shows your power. So when I have this wristband on, that is a status symbol. When I have my YSL belt on, that is a status symbol. This background is a status symbol. This microphone is a status symbol. This MacBook is a status symbol. These are all things that show you that I was at least able to escape some. What most guys think is, if I have a Rolex, if I have a car, I will get the girl. What a Rolex or a car really does, it just shows that you're not a complete idiot. That's all. That's how low the bar really is. It's not really about saying, I am so amazing. It's really just saying, I am not a total idiot, right? I at least figured something out. So what a girl can see, if you have like some kind of status symbol, like, you know, a cool luxury car or some kind of designer, at least she can go, okay, he at least figured out how to make money. That is at least something. Doesn't mean that she actually likes you or wants to date you or even wants to go to bed with you, right? That's the dumb thing guys assume. Like, oh, if I get all the things, if I elevate me to myself to here, then she'll like me. No, it's just access. It just shows her you're not an idiot, and at least you might be worth talking to or spending time with. It's not going to be a complete waste of her time. You still got to be socially calibrated. You still got to be funny. You still got to have charisma. You still got to have good energy. You still got to have that vibe that she's looking for. And so, but anyways, it's not a dating video. The point is, right, if you get stuck in the third dimension, it can make you chase forever, because there's never really a point where you achieve it. Like I said in the video about authority and trust, when I talk about sales, most people, they try to say, okay, if I achieve this and this and that, then I'll have the authority. But if you wait for that, it's never gonna come. Because first of all, nobody cares about your achievements really, if you really think about it. And second of all, there's no measure. And that's where you start to realize what happens in the fourth dimension. You realize winning doesn't matter. All that matters is what they believe. And so we ascend to the fourth level, the fourth dimension, the inversion reality. What we got is a little chessboard. I didn't explain all the other ones because I thought it was pretty straightforward. Transaction, right? 1-to-1. Polarized, good or bad. Authority, big guy speaking to a lot of little guys, right? Them looking up to him. And then inversion, you have a chessboard and the people are pawns. So 4D, or the fourth level, is based around the mindset. If I shape your perception, I shape your behavior. And these people look for influence in inversion. So they turn the tables, they turn the board, they turn the game around. This is not status-based. It's influence-based. Now, what are the sources that, again, start the dopamine mechanism? It's narrative leverage, attention engineering, desire redirection, and signal manipulation. For this paradigm, it will start to sound super abstract and vague to most of you. And the simplest way to understand which dimension you're in is just realize which one sounds very abstract to me. So if you're already at the third one, like, I cannot understand that, what are you talking about? It's a good sign that you're operating in either 2 or 1D. If you're still with me, awesome. You understand more than most people. Like I said, 4D is literally just probably 1% of people. 1D is like 10%. Like, you got to be like very low level consciousness to only operate in first dimension. Most people actually operate in second or third, and then a combination, right? 4D is about 1% of people, I would say. So these people understand, if I shape your perception, I shape your behavior. And it's not about actually doing and achieving and winning. It's just about making you believe. And so what is the filter for finding something that will give you the dopamine? It's looking for frame control, reframing reality, subtle suggestion, and emotional juxtaposition. I'm aware this will sound very vague to most of you, but stick with me. I'll explain it in basic terms. The easiest way you can think of this is just something like Mark Zuckerberg, right? Mark Zuckerberg, what did he do? He created Instagram and Facebook. And so what he did is he created a structure or a platform where people were basically able to engage in second dimensional dopamine chasing, first dimensional dopamine chasing, and third dimensional dopamine chasing, right? So some people use Instagram to just scroll and get pleasure and escape pain. Some people use Instagram to fight for their side, right? Whatever it is, whether it's their political party or their religion, right? They have huge discussions, right? Big discussions in the comment sections on Facebook about which is the right religion, what is the right idea, what you should do. Twitter is the prime example of this. The third dimension, some people leverage the social media platforms to engage in the third dimension, dopamine seeking. So they're showing off their watches, their cool cars, their status, their achievements, and maybe they're looking for clients, right? By showing their proof, like for example, we do as well, showing like, hey, we got an amazing product, we got amazing clients, we get our clients a bunch of results. And so if you're interested in working with us, here is the Calendly link. You can book in a call, we can talk to you, and you can join our program, right? So that is third dimension dopamine seeking in a way. Now, that's also helping people. We're selling a product, obviously. Remember what I said, dopamine is not bad, right? Most people have this stigma about dopamine is bad. It's just a chemical in your brain. It's just put there so you actually feel something. Now, I want you to think a moment about if there was no dopamine, what the fuck are we even doing? We don't feel compelled to do anything. We just sit there like this. And then we die, right? There would be no human civilization because no human would ever feel like doing something. Nobody would have any desire. Everybody would just be like derp, and then we would just die instantly, right? So dopamine is just a chemical that was put there by nature in order to make us do shit, right? Something has to do shit, right? That's what you realize in higher dimensions. It's not dopamine was like the manipulation chemical from God or from the universe. It's just, okay, we have to have some kind of system or thing in us as a being that makes us compelled or desire to do anything at all. And that happens to be dopamine. That's just how you want to look at dopamine. So 4D, right? Inversion, influence-based. So what you're looking for is really to persuade others. You're really looking to actually just use perception as a currency. And that basically means I understand if I shape your perception by saying certain things, by making you look at certain things, I can make you do certain action. And so this is what I like to call the dopamine dealer, right? So the person who's operating from the fourth dimension in terms of dopamine seeking is basically what we call the dopamine dealer. So in a way, like somebody who's a drugs dealer or somebody who sells anything in general, right? If you're selling candy, if you're selling a course, if you're selling a service, in some way, you're a dopamine dealer, right? You give people something, they fix a problem, and they feel better about their situation in life. The point is that you understand that you can move the pieces. You can get people to do certain things if you control their dopamine. And so you flip the game, right? Your dopamine becomes dependent on regulating other people's dopamine and moving the pawns on the chessboard. That can be, again, like I said, that can be both done for good and for bad. I know people who do it for good, right? So I'm really good at understanding how can I get people from where they are currently to their goal. And so I leverage my knowledge about understanding how to trigger dopamine in other people to get them to associate more pleasure with getting to whatever they want to get to, whether that's making more money or being better in their relationships or being happier or feeling more achieved or having a better sense of life. So I know how to get people to associate more pleasure with progression and living a life that they want to live and basically making more money or having better relationships or understanding more about themselves. And I help them associate more pain with their current situation or their old situation. And that way I am able to get people from A to B and get them to achieve their goals extremely efficiently. And ultimately they become happier, I become happier, and we're all happier. So it's a win-win-win-win. Now, at some cases, people just leverage it, right? So like I said, with social media platforms, some of them are just leveraging it in order to get as much money from you as possible. So that's not my personal viewpoint. It's just, once you understand everything in its own way is a weapon, you understand that you can use it to heal and you can use it to do harm. And it depends on what kind of person you are and what you leverage it for. What is the trap for the fourth dimension? Is there even a trap? Yes, there is. You can get super stuck in framing, right? So what can happen here is that you believe I can shape perception. So I don't have to play by the rules. I don't actually have to win. I just got to make it look like I'm winning. And that way I can get ahead of the person who's operating from the I have to win perspective, which is true in some cases. It can also do you a lot of harm if you don't know how to actually correctly frame. So what happens is that people start maybe lying about certain things. And this is what you see a lot in the high ticket coaching space, unfortunately. Right? A lot of people lie about their results. A lot of people show fake testimonials, fake screenshot, fake social proof. They give you bad knowledge that doesn't actually get you results, but that just kind of delays you or brings you even further from where you want to be. And this is what reinforces the whole idea of like, oh, get the Lambo, get the Rolex. Because when you get the Lambo, you get the Rolex, people take you more serious and they think, oh, this guy must be really smart. And then they mistake followers and status symbols with intelligence and effectiveness because they think, okay, that person must be really good at what they do if they were able to achieve this. That's not actually true. It just means they were really good at making you believe, right? And that is the trap. It's also a trap for the person itself, because if you are a morally ethical person like myself, if you would do this, you would not feel good about yourself, because you feel like, I have to create this frame. I have to constantly control this idea of what people think of me. I have to constantly manipulate and basically keep together the puppet show of what I'm actually, of who I am. And that becomes very tiring if you are a morally ethical person, right? If you are like me, you don't want to do that. You just want to spit your shit. You just want to show, this is what I got. This is my truth. This is what I know. This is the results I get. And based on that, you either work with me or you don't. But it's also very difficult for people like me because we have to compete with people that show Lambos. And then I know 7 out of the 10 people is not going to be smart enough to understand that the Lambo doesn't actually mean that they're going to coach you in the right way, and they'll go with the guy with the Lambo. And the 3 other people, they understand, if I listen to the guy with the Lambo, he sounds like an idiot, kind of, if I'm being honest. But if I listen to Leon, he sounds really smart. So I'll go with Leon. Only a small percentage of people is actually intelligent enough to make that jump in their mind. Most people will just be like, Lambo, Rolex, buy course, right? And then they'll get scammed and they'll be like, fuck. And it's like, yeah, anyways, at some point they'll come to me eventually. So it's fine. So this is the 4 levels. I now have to do a group coaching, so I'm going to stop this video. So we had an amazing group call, had to step out for a bit. But yeah, dopamine dealer. So you understand now the first 4 levels of dopamine chasing, basically. And there's 8 levels ultimately, but the other 4 are not important for now. First, you want to figure out which one are you in. Are you primarily operating in 2D with sometimes a bit of 3D and 1D? Are you primarily operating in 3D and then sometimes a bit in 2D and 4D? So the next step is basically to ascend, to transform. Now, there's an easy way to do that. There's a more difficult way. More difficult way is by yourself. I don't recommend it. Like, I've had people help me as well. I am the inventor of this framework. That is truly from me. Nobody has explained to me 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, dopamine, blah, blah, blah. Like, nobody has done that. But like I said, it's just easier when you have a third person because you don't know what you don't know. That is the biggest thing. You don't know what you don't know. And that is the biggest problem. It's not what you know, because what you know is what you're dealing with. It's what you don't know because you can't see it. Only somebody else can see it. If you want more help with that, go to the Calendly link in the description. There is a link to book a call, and then we can see if it makes sense for us to help you on a personal level. All right, I want to thank you for watching this video. Go subscribe. I'm going to upload a bunch more on this, so you will learn literally the ins and outs of this framework and how it applies to the entirety of life, not just dopamine, and it will transform your life and transform your mind. All right, I'd love to see you in the next video. Ciao.